Have you ever wondered why some people seem immune to fashion, as if they lived in a parallel universe where trends mean nothing? Think about it. Most people run desperately after the latest shirt someone has decided to turn into a uniform. The hairstyle that spreads like a plague everywhere. The vocabulary imposed by social media that dictates which word is trendy and which one already sounds ridiculous. But there's always someone who doesn't play that game. Someone who doesn't bend, someone who doesn't even look where everyone else is looking. And here's the unsettling part. They don't do it out of cheap rebellion. They don't do it to draw attention. They do it because their mind is wired differently. Those kinds of people are an enigma. They walk the same streets as you, work in offices just like yours, breathe the same air, yet they don't get contaminated. It's as if they had an invisible filter that blocks out the noise of the crowd. And while most people struggle to fit in, they seem comfortable in discomfort, strong in their solitude, unshaken by what the masses dictate. What kind of psychology lies behind that resistance? Is it strength? Is it arrogance? Or is it a form of freedom you haven't yet understood? What I'm about to tell you isn't a story of self-improvement or a moral lesson from a handbook. It's something much darker and much more real. Because not following fashion isn't a pose, it's an internal battle, a silent declaration that reveals more about the human mind than you might imagine. And when you understand what happens inside the psychology of those who dare not to submit to the herd, you'll also discover why you feel that same need to belong, and how you can break that chain you've been dragging for years. Stay until the end, because I'm going to show you the psychological truth behind those who don't follow fashion. And if you grasp it, by the time this video ends, you'll hold in your hands the answer you've been searching for. How to free yourself from the pressure of the herd without fear of being judged, and how to turn that difference into your greatest strength. Do you know what terrifies the crowd the most? It's not loneliness, not failure, not ridicule. It's meeting someone who doesn't need their approval to exist. That kind of person becomes an unbearable mirror because they reflect everyone else's fragility. And the most disturbing thing is they don't need to do anything extraordinary. It's enough to walk calmly, to dress without following trends, to ignore the noise. That simple act already shatters the choreography of the masses. Look closely. When someone dares not to follow fashion, they dismantle an entire system. That system feeds on imitation, on constant echo, on the fear of being pointed out. It's a theater where everyone repeats the same lines to avoid standing out, to avoid being questioned. And suddenly an actor appears who improvises, who doesn't stick to the script, who decides to move differently. That disorients, provokes discomfort, even hostility. Because the one who dares to think differently shows, by their mere existence, that obedience was optional. The fascinating part is what happens inside these people's minds. They don't feel the urgency for validation that consumes others. They don't build their identity on labels that expire in a year, a month, or a week. Their reference point isn't outside, it's within. And that psychological difference creates an enormous gap between them and the rest. While most measure their worth in likes, in comments, in approving glances, those who don't follow fashion operate in another dimension, that of radical autonomy. And here's where it gets truly disturbing. Most people fear them. Because what happens when you see someone who doesn't need what you need? Deep down, you know they have something you lack. And that void is hard to bear. That's why the masses react with mockery, rejection, and judgment. It's not hatred, it's fear disguised. Because if someone free exists, it means your prison was always imaginary. But think about this. Not following fashion doesn't mean being indifferent to the world. It means seeing it through another lens, sharper, more awake. While you chase what's new out of fear of being left behind, they know nothing truly new exists. Everything is recycled. Every trend is a cage painted in bright colors. And the worst part is, they're right. When you choose not to obey fashion, you uncover the trick. And once you see the trick, you can never fall for it again. So next time you cross paths with someone who doesn't follow trends, don't underestimate them. They might seem strange. Their indifference toward what obsesses you might make you uncomfortable. But remember this: those kinds of minds are the ones that change the rules of the game. They're the ones who slip through the net while everyone else celebrates being trapped. And if you understand how that psychology works, you'll finally be able to decide whether you want to keep being part of the herd or break the invisible chains you didn't even know you were wearing. And here's the promise I made you. By the end of this video, you'll understand why some people are immune to fashion, what's in their minds that allows them to live outside the herd, and how you can start building that same psychological freedom, without fear, without ever depending on the reflection of the crowd again. There's something even deeper that no one wants to admit. Fashions aren't born to beautify life. They're born to control. Every trend works like an invisible code that separates those who obey from those who resist. Dressing the same, talking the same, thinking the same. It's no coincidence. It's a social mechanism that ensures the crowd remains predictable. And this is where the true power of those who don't follow fashion comes into play. They break that code, they destroy the map others drew, and they become uncomfortable anomalies, proving that control isn't absolute. The psychological impact of resisting that machinery is brutal. Those who don't follow fashion train a kind of mental endurance that others don't possess. Imagine living surrounded by constant signals pushing you in one direction and still choosing another. That takes a kind of discipline few achieve. Because it's not just about rejecting a shirt or a hairstyle. It's about defying the narrative that defines what's acceptable and what's not. It's an act of silent war against collective programming. And here's a detail many overlook. Fashion doesn't just affect clothes or music. It also shapes beliefs, ideologies, ways of thinking. When someone is immune to superficial trends, they're likely immune to the manipulation of ideas that travel with them. That kind of person doesn't need a group to tell them what to think, doesn't align with the majority just to avoid being alone. And that intellectual autonomy is what truly scares people. The curious thing is that this difference is visible in the smallest gestures. A person who doesn't follow fashion looks, moves, expresses themselves differently. There's no rush in their words, no desperation to be accepted, because they know the price of fitting in is too high, the loss of identity, and that calm generates something unexpected: influence. Because even though they don't seek to be role models, they end up becoming them. The crowd first rejects them, but sooner or later watches them. And here we reach the most paradoxical part. Many of those who create fashion were, at the beginning, the ones who decided not to follow any. The market turns authenticity into trend, transforms it into merchandise, and what was once resistance becomes a uniform. But there's always an invisible difference between the original and the copy. The one who never followed fashion doesn't need to be imitated because their strength doesn't lie in appearances, but in the structure of their mind. What I want you to understand is this: when you see someone who doesn't conform to what the crowd dictates, you're not looking at a lost eccentric. You're looking at a spirit trained not to be molded. And if you dare to analyze it more deeply, you'll discover that this strength isn't inaccessible. You can build it too. You only need one first step. Question everything you do and ask yourself if you truly chose it, or if fashion chose it for you. Stay with me, because I'm going to show you how that seemingly unreachable psychology can start to become yours. How you can become someone who walks freely in a world obsessed with obedience. What almost no one dares to face is that rejecting fashion isn't just an aesthetic or social issue. It's also a phenomenon of identity. Because every trend works like a collective costume hiding individual insecurities. Most people wear what the current dictates not because they truly want to, but because they fear being naked in their authenticity. It's like plastic armor, fake, fragile, and repetitive. Those who don't follow fashion walk without that armor, and that makes them unsettling to others. They provoke suspicion, because if they don't need to disguise themselves, it means they might have found something others haven't. The ability to stand without artifice. And here's a key point in the psychology of these people. They've learned to live with their vulnerability without running from it. They don't need external approval as anesthesia. They don't seek applause as a sedative. They've made peace with their own discomfort. That makes them dangerous in the eyes of the system, because a mind that doesn't kneel before fashion is a mind that won't kneel before anything. It doesn't accept imposed labels, doesn't move to the rhythm of advertising campaigns, doesn't bow before the crowd's gaze. And when someone dares to disobey visible rules, they're also preparing to disobey the invisible ones. What begins as a small gesture, not wearing what everyone wears, not repeating what everyone repeats, can become a silent revolution that threatens the entire machinery of control. And here's the most intriguing part. People who don't follow fashion develop a secret kind of pleasure in being different. Not because they want to show it off, but because they know it's the only true currency in a world of counterfeits. That pleasure isn't arrogance, it's awareness. The awareness that if everyone thinks alike, someone stopped thinking. And they refuse to extinguish that spark, even if the price is being pointed at, even if the price is walking alone. The irony is that others feel a contradictory attraction toward them. First rejection, then curiosity, later admiration disguised as criticism. Because deep down, everyone senses that path is more authentic, but not everyone is ready to walk it. And meanwhile, the one who doesn't follow fashion keeps moving forward, immune to the noise, with the calm of someone who has nothing to prove. So listen closely. If you feel that discomfort every time you chase what everyone else chases, if you notice that inner voice asking why you do it, it's because the seed of this psychology already exists within you. The difference lies in whether you'll dare to nurture it or keep hiding it under the rug of conformity. Because those who don't follow fashion aren't born different. They choose to be. And that choice, though small, is the beginning of a freedom that scares everyone except the one who possesses it. People who don't follow fashion often move through an invisible terrain, a mental territory others don't even know exists. It's as if they walk beneath the noise, through secret hallways that open only to those who've decided to stop obeying. And the most surprising thing is they don't need to do anything extraordinary to enter that place. It's enough to refuse to follow the imposed rhythm. In that instant, they begin to see life from a different height, as if the rest of humanity were trapped on a stage, repeating an endless play, and they, silently, were watching from the empty seats. Most people live obsessed with belonging, because without belonging they feel their existence loses value. But those who don't follow fashion have understood that belonging isn't always a refuge. Often it's a trap. And here lies the darkest part of the psychology of the masses. Fashion isn't just an aesthetic game. It's a mechanism of collective control that turns exclusion into social punishment. Whoever dares to break the pattern pays a price. They're labeled strange, antisocial, eccentric. But what others don't realize is that this punishment is actually the greatest reward. Because once you survive the judgment, you discover that freedom weighs less than acceptance, and solitude becomes a cheap price compared to the slavery of what they'll say. The most fascinating thing is that these people don't disconnect from the world. They don't live isolated in caves or despise others to feel free. They're still here in the same society, working, walking, breathing the same air as everyone else. But their priorities are different. Their time isn't spent chasing empty validations. Their energy isn't wasted collecting applause, and their minds aren't poisoned by the need to display themselves. That calm allows them to build in silence what most don't even dare to dream of. Do you know what's most ironic? While the crowd spends hours talking about what's trendy, what's in on social media, what must be bought or worn to avoid being left out, those who ignore all that end up having something the masses never achieve. Time. Time to go deep, to learn, to explore ideas that don't wither in a few months. That difference, though it seems small, turns into a chasm over the years. Those who don't follow fashion not only live freer, they live with more inner wealth, because they've invested their attention in what lasts, not in what burns out like a spark. And now that we've made it this far, before we continue, I want to present the following to you. Our book, The Formula of Awakening, is now available. Do you feel like there's something inside you that wants to awaken, but you don't know where to start? Then I invite you to transform your way of thinking, and with it, your way of living. Discover who you can become. Start today. The link to get the ebook is in the first pinned comment of this video. Grab your copy now at a great price. With that said, let's continue with the video. And here's the most unsettling part. That extra time, that energy not wasted on chasing the ephemeral, gives them an advantage the crowd can't understand. They advance slowly but steadily, while others run in circles behind ever-changing trends. In the end, as years pass, that difference in rhythm becomes a difference in destiny. Those who surrendered to fashion end up exhausted, confused, always looking for the next thing. Those who didn't follow it built something solid, something that doesn't depend on anyone's approval. Now tell me, doesn't it disturb you to realize that true slavery isn't in visible chains, but in automatic obedience to what everyone calls normality? Because here's the secret. Fashions are cages with invisible bars. And those who don't follow them are the few who've learned to see those bars and walk through them as if they were smoke. And you know what's incredible? You can do it too. You just need to start doubting every trend sold to you as indispensable, every current that carries you away without asking. And now we reach what you feared hearing the most. Because up to this point, we've exposed that fashions aren't mere collective whims. What they really hide is something far more sinister. They're tests of obedience. Every time you submit to a trend, you unconsciously prove you're willing to follow without questioning. It's like a master key that opens the door of your mind and lets in any instruction disguised as normal. And when someone breaks that chain, they don't just challenge aesthetics, they challenge the entire system. The end of this path is clear. Whoever dares not to follow fashion doesn't just gain personal freedom. They gain control over their own narrative. While others live dragged along by what others decide, these people draw their own map. And here's the part most people can't stand. Fashion is fleeting, but the identity you build when you learn to be independent is eternal. You decide whether you want to keep being part of the herd that changes direction every season, or build a path no one can take from you. Because in the end, not following fashion isn't just a choice, it's a declaration of power. And that power isn't in what you wear, what you listen to, or what you share. It's in your ability to own yourself in a world enslaved by reflection. So here's my proposal. If you've made it this far into the video, it's because there's something inside you that no longer wants to obey. Let it out. Start today by questioning what you're told to desire. And if this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, because here we'll keep uncovering the truths others prefer to hide. And I want to read you. Leave in the comments the phrase, "I don't follow the herd," so I'll know you're one of the few who dare to walk free. And I'll leave you the only way someone who doesn't follow fashion can, without predictable formulas, without empty speeches, just with a warning. If you decide to walk the path of freedom, be ready, because the crowd will try to drag you back. But if you resist, one day you'll realize something both terrifying and fascinating. They need fashion to exist. You don't. And in that moment, you'll know you're unstoppable. See you in the next video, if you decide to stay awake.